only reliable is whatever social media gives. Yes, I got it. My source is reliable. Where he got it may not be founded. But if you, I don't know whether it's on, you never know with this microphone.
Call the meeting to order. Dane Shaw will lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Father, we are grateful for another day to come and just worship you and just to be here as a city. We ask you to give us wisdom. We ask you to just give us strength, and that we, Father, just look into what you want us to do as a city and make those decisions. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Dane. Roll call. Here. Here.
Jackson.
Here.
McMasters. Pepper.
All right, this is a special called meeting for two items. One is to set a public hearing for March 6th, and then the other is just a first reading for something that will actually be on our work session agenda at 5 o'clock. First item is set public hearing ordinance 254601, approved rezoning request 142725 for Country Club Road. Set public hearing for March 6, 2025 at 9 a.m.
Yeah, good evening, Council. This is a rezoning for 9.91 acres at 2401 Country Club Lane from B2 to RD.
And I think that gets basically matches every other.
It does. That's why they needed it, yes.
Any questions?
I got one. Now, I spoke with Ms. Tate, who's on the planning commission, and we were having a conversation, and there was no rush on this. Why are we doing this at a special call meeting when we're only a week away from a meeting?
Because they were needing it for, they're doing a neighborhood meeting they needed to get in for.
They have a neighborhood meeting.
I knew the neighborhood meeting was coming, but still, I don't know the urgency of this. I mean, I don't oppose this at all.
Sure.
But I'm just curious as to why we're rushing this thing through, and when it was said that they did not have a rush, and now we're...
Well, the developer stated to us that they want everything consolidated before they had the neighborhood meeting.
So could they not have set the neighborhood meeting a week farther back?
They seem to be on a tight timeline, and so we're just trying to accommodate them.
I guess that's where I'm kind of lost, because they did not seem to be on a tight timeline now.
I think I can answer some of this.
Okay.
The meeting, you know how we are staffing wise and planning.
Mm-hmm.
This was approved in time to get it on the agenda, our last agenda, to have actually been voted on last week. We did not get it on soon enough where we could have actually voted last week, even though the planning commission meeting was voted in time to do that, and that kind of threw their timeline off. To Ms. Tate's point, I think they they were on the right timeline if we could have gotten it on that agenda. But I did not have a request to do that. We would have gotten it on if I would have. So that's,
And I'm not,
yeah.
it's not your fault, but my understanding is that we've got other issues that are pushing these things back, and we keep cramming things on the agenda. So anyway, I don't have a problem with this at all. I don't think that it should be on this. We should have a special call meeting, so I will abstain from this today, but I will second it to get it on the floor.
We actually aren't voting today.
Oh, we're not. I thought we were going to.
Say.
I thought we were doing immediate consideration. Are we not?
No, that's what I'm saying. We would actually have to wait potentially a whole nother. This isn't happening till March. Yeah.
In my mistake, I was thinking we were going to do immediate consideration, and I was going to go along with that to get it on, but I didn't. I still don't understand the rush, but okay.
Understand.
We'll go for it.
All right, any other questions? Thanks, Dave. All right, ordinances, first reading, ordinance 254602, establish salary and compensation of mayor and city council for the term beginning November 2025.
Good afternoon, Council. Kyle Demeester, Finance. As we look to increase the mayor and council salaries for the upcoming term, I'd like to take this time to share with you all and citizens interested the duties, settings, and responsibilities the mayor has for the city of Decatur. And the reason for it being on this agenda is the law requires that in order to change it, it has to be complete within 6 months prior to the election, which is August 26th. So naturally, February 26th is the deadline. A recent AL.com article shared the top salaries of wages of mayors in the state of Alabama. Our current pay of $112,000, which includes the car allowance, has the city of Decatur ranked 8th. Some cities to highlight who pay their mayor more with smaller cities are Florence, $127K, Gadsden, $127K, Opelika, $120K, and Madison, who goes back and forth with us. Being the CFO, I'll bring up finances first, but the mayor is responsible for an almost $100 million general fund budget, $200 million plus citywide budget. And think about this, our total city business community generates $2 billion in gross receipts. The mayor serves as our chief spokesperson. The mayor is also responsible for 500 plus employees that range anywhere from a garbage truck driver to an attorney. He or she serve in a legislative role, working with the 10 biggest mayors in Alabama, state delegation, the governor of Alabama, Congress in DC, senators in DC. They work with local nonprofits, other governmental entities like the city school system, our county commission. They work with our community leaders, entrepreneurs at the East Center, surgeons at the hospital, pastors at a church, small business owners that make up our 2 downtowns. And lastly, our community, close to 60,000 residents and growing. I want to make it very clear that these proposed salaries are for the mayor and council elected in the upcoming term and will be stagnant for the entire term. Salaries and wages for these positions have not been adjusted since 2012. I will end with stating the importance of this ordinance as we approach the election of a new mayor and potentially new council people. This is an important job, as everyone in here is aware of, and the qualifications for those we elect need to be as well. I know through conversations with my colleagues across the state that this is not a Decatur problem. Amazing qualified candidates do not entertain city service because of what would be a significant pay cut. The proposed mayor's council salaries are within market and carefully thought out considering the growth of our city and our region with input from each of you. I believe this increase will better position the city to attract qualified candidates for these vital city leadership roles.
Thanks, Kyle. Any discussion? This is the first reading, so it's actually on the work session agenda at 6 o'clock.
Kyle, I'll ask you this, and I know the answer, but I want you to share it. When's the last time the mayor and council had a raise?
November of 2012. Per my source, Mayor, or Herman Marks.
All right, any other questions?
I have a question, Herman. Is there any way, and I know that we typically do this for, and I've not been able to find anything that allows us to do it, but you have research abilities that I might not have. Our employees who are driving vehicles and things of that nature are subject to random drug tests. And
They're safety-sensitive individuals, yes, sir.
is there any way that we could add that to council members and a mayor. I'm not trying to be funny. I just think that, and there's no reason, and this is to point at no one here, absolutely. But I just think that we have such responsibility, and our responsibilities throughout our city and for the future of our city lead to us being clear-headed at all times. And I'm curious as to, is there any way that we could add something of that nature to this pay raise, where it would,
Well-
if you tested positive, because you can't remove someone from a county. So the question is, could you possibly impact their pay? Could we dock their pay by, as we do with attendance, could we dock their pay if they're found to be in such a state?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to find out, is there a possibility? Is there any
Yeah.
mechanism whatsoever that we could do where we could add that to mayor and council?
you certainly can adopt it. I wouldn't do it as part of this compensation. I would do a separate ordinance that does what you just described.
But it's got to be tied to, if we're going to do it from a compensation point of view, it's got to be tied to compensation, just like the attendance was tied to compensation. So.
Well, I believe you can adopt an ordinance that will tie it to do what you just described.
And it would still, because it is going to impact compensation, would have to be done 6 months prior to the election, would it not?
You just cannot increase a salary. But that's not increasing a salary. That is a penalty. That's a criminal penalty. What
That
that
would be
is.
punitive if someone were found to be in that, if they had a random drug test. Personally, I'd rather see it done monthly. But if they were a random drug test on a council member, me for instance, just hypothetical, and I were found to be in that situation and we had adopted something where I lost 3 months worth of pay, then that impacts our pay scale, does it not?
We can look at it further. Part of the concern I have, just from what you're just describing, is without probable cause or some reason to drug test, you're not able to do that because y'all are not safety sensitive individuals.
And that's what I guess that's my whole point, is that I've not been able to find anything.
That's right.
I'm just wondering, is there any mechanism that you are aware of that would allow us to do that? I mean, I can't find anything.
Well,
you're the legal mind here.
Yeah, I understand. If you're asking, is there a way to justify a random drug test? Answer to that is, I do not believe so. I believe you can, in fact, have penalties if you violate. But of course, you need to be convicted. Not getting arrested is not adequate. You have to be convicted.
Would you look into that?
I will. Yes, sir. That's a good.
Because I just think that I think there's too much at stake when we're dealing with our citizens' money and the future of our city, whether it's growth or any other aspect of our city. I just think that that's important.
Yeah,
From my perspective.
There may be a way to make it a fine, just a separate fine that could equal some of the separate.
That's
compensation.
the attendance is a specific separate ordinance we did in 2020 that,
I was here.
yes.
Yeah, that was-
I'm just trying to figure out. We tied that to attend. We tied the.
It's on this.
Compensate. It's on this as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to figure out if there's some way that we could attach something to it the same way that we did that.
All right, let me make sure I'm understanding what. Are you saying that if they're driving their personal car or
No.
only city vehicles?
No, I'm looking at random drug testing. And that's what I'm actually looking at.
Oh, okay.
I know that we're
All right,
not
I'm with you.
In a safety-sensitive position.
Well, but y'all are not safety sensitive
That's what I'm
positions.
saying.
Okay.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, is there any other provision that we could look at that would encompass that? I mean,
Well,
that's all I'm asking.
I understand.
I'm just asking
I understand
to
now.
see if there's any way for us to do it and how we would tie it in and make it work.
All right. I understand what you're asking, sure do. But the other answer to you, I don't want to prolong it, but the other answer is if you've got probable cause, if somebody comes in and it's obviously been driving, then it's called reasonable suspicion is what it boils down to.
Yeah, and I guess I'm aware of that.
I'm just trying to add the parameters so you'll.
I'm aware of that.
All right.
I guess the reason that I'm asking is that, again, our employees who are in safety-sensitive positions, and this is not one of those, I'm aware of that. But our employees who are in safety-sensitive positions are randomly tested. And I'm just wondering, could there be some sort of provision, whether it was randomly tested or monthly tested or quarterly tested?
I got you.
If there could be something imposed on the elected body to do that. I just think that our decisions are too critical to our city for us not to be, again, clear.
All right. That's a good catch. Let's see what I can find out. Thank you. I understand what you're asking now.
I've never asked you that before, and I just...
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. I understand your question. I thought you were trying to tie it into something. Okay, I'm with you.
Well-
Thank you. This is good.
How, can you clarify how the car allowance is paid?
So it's a separate item on the pay stub. So I should have stated to the public, the council's pay is, if you read the ordinance, council president will make 20% of the mayor's salary, and councilman or woman will make 17.5%, which is up 2.5% from 2012. The car allowance is separate from that calculation, so it's taxable income, but it's not qualifying for the council's pay, if that's what you're asking.
But it's just, you have to use your city, it's not a city vehicle, you have to use your personal car
Correct.
line, so it offsets the cost for that.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? All right, we are adjourned and we'll get started at 5 o'clock.
again, after.
All right, thanks everybody for being here. We'll go ahead with our work session for next week's council agenda. We'll start with public comments on the agenda items. The first person signed in is Justin Weil.
Good evening. I wanted to speak on the Point Mallard Park rate increase. I spoke about this a few months back. I think this is a big mistake if we do move forward with increasing these rates on that, given the current economic climate we're facing. I mean, I'm sure all of you have been to the grocery stores and seen people just can't afford the basic necessities there. Take away this, I mean, you're just taking away leisure activities from them as well. But I think you should keep it the same.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. Faruqi.
Okay, I think we talked already about fraud, waste, and abuse, the potential for having a policy not directed against any particular employee, but against the process. This month, we had $150,000 to spend on fuel. That'd be $1.8 million per year. If we save 5%, that'd be $90,000. So it was $50,000 last time we talked. Now it's $90,000 we'd be saving if we had a policy like that. Why can't we have a policy like that? Waste, fraud, and abuse. Thank you, Mayor. Status of the spur hires, we spent $145,000.
I'm sorry.
I just said,
Yeah. What'd you say?
Status of the spur hires,
You're talking about our temp agency.
I'm assuming that's what it is.
I'm not sure what you mean by status, but that's what that is.
Well, apparently 3 positions, 3 checks, $145,000.
I'm not sure about that.
I think that's communication director, maybe.
No, we have not hired that position. I don't believe. That would not be a spur employee.
Okay. Should taxpayers fund Mr. Pinia's membership in the Alabama chapter of the FBI National Academy Alumni Association? Because I look at it personally, that's like me having the Army pay for my AUSA membership every year.
I think that's the position. We fund that. I'm sure we have for a long time. So yes.
Well, you've only had one person graduate from that I know of that we've paid from as a city.
I'm not sure, but we
We
voted.
fund certain associations that members of our staff are associated with.
Again, waste, fraud, and abuse, that's a private funded personal.
Right answer for you, Mr. Faruqi.
I'm sorry?
There's no right answer for you.
Well, I would prefer us to have a policy on waste, fraud, and abuse. Okay, there's a hearing we're going to be talking about on the Cook property. That procedurally was not introduced during the Planning Commission with a posted agenda prior to public commentary, and I brought that up earlier. Council liaison was also not present at that meeting. Are you okay, Tab?
No, sir, I'm not.
Would you like to leave? I'd feel safer if you would leave that way.
Continue, please.
Under pay and procedures for ordinance 25-4602, this ordinance should be tabled until further policies and procedures are developed. There's supposed to be a natural tension and balance of power between the mayor and the city council. Beyond some significant dramatics between the two of you, the preponderance of the time council votes to support the mayor's initiatives without providing any tangible discussion or alternate courses of action. The result has been a pass-through entity without accountability, transparency, or fiscal responsibility. Council has complained that they have full-time jobs in order to put food on the table and therefore cannot devote sufficient time to council liaison or legislative responsibilities. Because of this, we have lame excuses of council being a part-time job with little calling for legislative action or to address crucial public concerns. Rather than provide for a raise to the position of president each year assigned as a president, why not augment Section 4 that provides for reimbursement opportunities and provide an incentive for intellectual curiosity or research time spent in the public interest? Personally, I do not think that you all are paid sufficiently for what you are supposed to be doing. However, I do believe you are all sufficiently, more than sufficiently paid for what you are doing. Reference the pickleball courts. Why do we not offer a silver sneaker program for senior citizens to incentivize healthy lifestyles?
There is a discounted rate for pickleball for seniors. if I understand.
Well, it's free for Silver Sneakers.
I'm not sure.
Mayor, you're going to be enjoying that pretty soon.
Yes, sir, I am.
I know you are. So why don't we make the pickleball courts have that same opportunity that the mayor's going to have here when he turns 65, that it can be free use?
Same as every other citizen. Yeah.
No, but this is incentivizing the use of those facilities for that program.
We'll see when that item comes up for
Well, it's going to come up for a vote unless you decide that you should either table it until you get more facts and redo some research to figure out what the Silver Sneaker program could
We
be.
could table it, or we might not. That would be up to the council.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Move into our agenda. Approval of monthly bills. Approve January 2025 monthly bills. Any questions? Approval of minutes, February 3rd, 2025, 5:30 p.m. council work session, February 3rd, 2025, 6 p.m. council meeting, January 27th, 2025, 5 p.m. council work session. Any questions? Set public hearings, resolution 25019, approved demolition of the old car wash located at 2612 Old Moulton Road, Southwest.
Yeah, this car wash is fallen in, I think 2 years back. No permits have been taken out to abate, to rebuild it or to tear it down. After the holidays, when we come back, part of the building has fallen in, so we request to move forward with public hearing for demolition.
Any questions? All right, public hearings, resolution 25020, approved request for special event retail liquor license for Carnegie Visual Arts Center doing business as Carnegie Carnival at 133 2nd Avenue Northeast, Decatur, Alabama 35601.
Yeah, they have met all qualifications for this.
Any questions? All right, weed abatements, resolution 25021, assess $348 against 1517 Bay Street Southwest for cost of abatement of nuisance, and resolution 25022, assess $348 against 1121 10th Avenue Southeast for cost of abatement of nuisance.
We just request your permission to assess this cost to the properties.
All right, any questions? Resolution 25023, authorize mayor to enter into an agreement with Lord A.X. Sargent Planning and Design for Historic Structures Report for Carnegie Visual Arts Center. Alan?
This is the agreement with Lord Sargent to do the structures report that we talked about that we got the grant for, and y'all approved last week. We're just asking your approval.
Any questions? All right, resolution 25024, approve A-Trip 252-2023, 176, Upper River Road, Track 1, 2708 Point Miller Parkway, Davenport property relocation expenses.
Yeah, this is part of our right-of-way and relocation expenses for that project, and the property owners allowed moving expenses based on using state funds, and we recommend this amount to move forward.
All right, any questions? Resolution 25025, approve Morel Engineering proposal for Wilson Morgan Park access improvements.
Yeah, we had got a traffic study done for the rec center in Wilson Morgan. This is getting Morel Engineering involved to help do the design to implement some of the things that traffic study brought out.
All right, any questions? Resolution 25026, approve with Volker, correct, for 6th Avenue roadwork improvements.
Yeah, January 28th, we opened bids for the 6th Avenue project, and the actual agreement's going to be with Grayson Carter and Sons, so the resolution's going to be amended before the meeting next week. They were the sole bidder and low bidder, and Dane did some negotiating with them. It took a little bit off the price, and we'd recommend moving forward.
All right, any questions?
That's for the full project, TAP grant?
Correct. Yeah, the total price, it was bid as one bid, but it's two separate projects based on the funding sources.
Just want to clarify. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Carl, you got something?
Oh, yeah. Just to let everybody know and publicly put it out there, Friday morning sometime, we have an engineering firm that's going to be doing some cores at the turn lane on Beltline, turning left onto Motus Road. So for about an hour or so Friday morning, that's going to be closed down, just to let everybody know and try to put it out there publicly as I can.
And And there is access at there's one before the next light where you can cut over to Modus and then all the way up to Glen. And
Right.
get to Danville or Modus. So.
Correct.
All right, any questions?
Thank you.
Resolution 25027, approved 2025 Point Mallard rate changes. I'll read all these if that's okay. So, Resolution 25028, approved Point Mallard facility fee, and Resolution 25029, approved 2025 rate changes for park and recreation vehicles.
Council Mayor Stephanie McLean, Point Mallard Park. These resolutions are for some of the event center pricing as well as some rate changes for golf course, water park, city cemetery, as well as the tennis facility and the pickleball facility. You all have, last week I emailed you the rates as well as the comparisons to local and then some that are like us, maybe not so local, so that you guys would have something to compare to. All of these rates have come through by multiple conversations with key members of the community. We've met with tennis players, pickleball players. We've met with, those individuals who gave us a lot of insight and input to these. The rates were also approved and recommended by the Park and Rec Board for these. So.
On the pickleball, can you share some of the value that will provide at the new facility that we have been providing?
Yes, sir. So there are lots of pickleball outdoor free spaces at this time. With this being the indoor facility, we will have someone there making sure that the time play is kept up with. Everybody does get their turns on the courts. We'll also have someone to help clean and do things like that at the new facility. We are talking about for some of the especially the youth and things, maybe putting in some kiosk and things as far as so that they can come out and try pickleball if they've never played. We know that's a growing sport with the youth, but that would give us some of those things. We're also partnering with some of the local community members on doing everything from clinics, free clinics to tournaments and things like that as well. One thing I will say on some of the rates and things we did look at, such as the golf course, who has never had a senior military rate. We are proposing to do a discounted price with some of those as well as tennis and pickleball. And then the other resolution there for the one that actually talks about the facility fee. So with the facility fee, some of you all have asked us for ways that Point Mallard could come up with ways that we could increase an amount or put back some to do improvements at the park or projects and things. One way to do that would be to charge a facility fee. Coleman Water Park currently does this as well. We're proposing a $5 transaction fee, which would be the facility fee, and that money would be set aside to help with projects and improvements like for the water park or other places, so that we're not competing for the same money as the other general fund, whether it be fire trucks or road paving and things like that. So it would be to help with those type things.
All right, thanks, Steph. Any questions?
Curious on the pickleball.
Yes, sir.
I've had a few people reach out in opposition, and I know you get the pickleball and tennis, but so the employees there will coordinate people playing, stuff like that. All right, let me ask another, as far as the indoor thing, I mean, we have Aquadome right now, I know a lot of people are playing there. I guess until that's demolished, why would anyone pay to play at a new facility?
Well, that's a great question. So for this particular facility, first of all, it is the larger facility. So I know right now, from what I understand, and I'm not a pickleball person, so excuse me if I speak out of turn with that, but a lot of people, that's a sport that they like to go and play together in groups. So whether they're going to the Aquadome or they're meeting at Walter Jackson or wherever they're going. So with us having that many indoor courts, the way we understand it, that's what the most excitement brings about with this new facility, is they can all meet there and play together. So that is one big advantage of having it all there together.
So they all met there at one time.
Well, there's a scheduler, so they would schedule in just like they do now. Mr. Jackson, that's a great question. So they use a scheduler now, but let's say that From what I understand, talking to the pickleball, some of the members in the pickleball community, they may all decide today they're going to play Priceville. Tomorrow, they may play at the junior high. And this day, they may go play at Walter Jackson. So, and it's kind of more of a community type interaction as well. The other part to that is because we do know there are so many youth players now, is we can kind of control that with the scheduler to make sure we do have some open courts for the youth to come and play so that the youth will have opportunities and they're not waiting in line behind the scheduler. So.
Any other questions? Thanks, Steph. Ordinances, first reading, ordinance 254603 declares surplus and authorized sale of 710 and 712 Walnut Street Northwest to Maryland Williams.
Yes, these are two properties that Ms. Williams has approached the city about purchasing. This price, the price that we said was just based on what we've sold those properties in the Vine Street redevelopment area in the past. So we're just requesting that y'all authorize the sale to Ms. Williams.
You don't have a problem doing any consideration on this?
No, sir, not at all.
Thanks, Alan. Ordinances, ordinance 254602 establish salary and compensation of mayor and city council for the term beginning November 2025.
I won't read my big long write-up again, but kind of shared in the last meeting the importance of this ordinance, the role of the mayor and of council, and what this ordinance does from a market standpoint comparing to other cities, and ensuring that we get proper folks running for council and for mayor that tie with the salary.
All right, any discussion, questions? All right, Mr. Jackson.
I am just going to proudly announce that our Austin High School cheerleading girls went to Orlando this week to compete for a national championship. And today they came in first place in the nation. So that is awesome. It's probably our first national championship for high school sports like that, team sports anyway. But we're just so proud of her. Of course, I'm proud because my daughter's a coach, and they're the assistant coaches and the cheerleaders put so much time into this. They were disappointed with the state, their state positioning this year, but they qualified to go to the Nationals, and with that, they went to Orlando this week and competed at 122 today, and at about 3 o'clock we found out that they were the national champions. So it was awesome.
Thank you. That is awesome news. Mayor.
Hey, just to share real quick, and many of you were here last week, saw what went on, but last week there was a $52 million investment announced by Clearview Cancer Institute, and that's a $30 million building, $22 million in equipment, and then last Thursday we had a groundbreaking at our new $45 million rec center and natatorium. And that's, I know my math's going to be just a little short, but I'm going to do a deacon's count and round up to $100 million in 1 week. And that's exciting for Decatur. That's for our residents, quality of life, health care. Both are very, very important. And we've got more coming. So anyway, thank you for everyone making that happen.
Can I piggyback on that for a second? There was an article in the newspaper last week, and Bain pointed out the fact that typically I don't support abatements or of this nature. This is something that is, as Mayor talked about, it's healthcare. There are 2,600 new patients annually that go into this facility or will go into this facility. So when we talk about lives, the impact that it has on families, this is not, in my opinion, this is not a typical abatement. This is something that is going to have impact on our ability to be able to treat cancer and try to overcome that deadly disease. So that was why I changed my positioning on that. So if anybody else, where is Maggie? Right there. Any more questions about that? That's it in a nutshell. The way that it impacts our families and their lives. So that was it.
Thanks, Mr. Jackson. All right, anybody else have anything? Yes.
I know that Jason spoke about this, but I just wanted to remind everybody, we do have the Flint Park community meetings Tuesday, tomorrow, the 11th, and Thursday, the 13th, from 5:30 to 7. They'll be at the Fire Training Center, so that they're the community meetings for Flint Park. I also know he spoke about the bricks that were at Venture Park. Those we have collected, taken to the maintenance area. It's actually on our Facebook and our webpage, but you can call and give them your information, and they're going to hunt for your brick to get those back to you. And then adult softball registration is now going on. So I know that our leagues have kind of been down a little bit, so did want to put that information out there. And anybody can call Wilson Morgan for that as well. So.
Thanks, Steph. Anybody else? All right, we'll move into our public comment. We'll go in order. We'll do 3 minutes. You'll hear a bell, 1 minute to wrap up. And please address the council. No comments of city employees, please. And we'll start with Sarah French.
So that Point Mallard fee, you're saying it's going to be $30 a day now, and they want to pay an extra $5?
If that's per transaction.
That's horrible,
Not
$35 a day.
per transaction, so it would be per ticket, but yes.
Yeah, that's really bad for like 10 to 3. That's just not even worth it. Okay. I mean, I go all the time, but there's no way I'd pay that. First, I want to start with, rather than end with, justice for Steve Perkins. That's what brought me here, and that's what started our fight, and that's what opened our eyes to this corrupt city. So we paid and had this third-party report. It's shown major issues. I asked last week what action would be taken and didn't really get a response. But now a week later, as numerous more things have went on in this city, now another week, lives were lost in this city. Now another week, this city has went further down. Now this week, I will ask, what are we going to do? We have the report. We see and know the issues. We need a hearing. If you can't get this police chief gone immediately, then he needs daily accountability to someone that is not in his band of brothers. Again, the report is in. We know and we have proof how horrible our police department is doing. We need action now. What action can be took? And can we, at minimum, have a hearing directly about this report with the chief?
There are some things we can do. Mr. McMaster mentioned last week, I think, to your question about the Citizens Advisory Board. I had a meeting this past week, previous week, about that. We're working on the revamp of that to get on an agenda. I think we've all given...
Yeah, y'all three are actually good.
Everybody has given their thought on how to move forward. There are some other things we can do. It just takes a little bit of time.
He won't meet with us.
It just takes a little bit of time, and we want to be able to, everybody to be able to move forward, including our department. Like I've always said, can I go on a little for a minute? No, you're good. You're good.
I'm done. So
okay.
You just.
Just this narrative, and I know it's just the world we live in 2025 now. Of you're in one camp or you're the other. And I talked about that a few weeks ago, but this narrative, and I get it, that Ladner hates the police or whatever. And I was thinking about this week. First off, that is untrue, and I could point to a lot of reasons why that's untrue. But it's being based off basically one position I've taken. And what I would say is, and y'all bear with me for a minute, I'm an Auburn fan. Good. I'm an Auburn fan. And back in, this is my analogy, I'll go back to football. Back in the 2000 to 2007, we had Coach Tuberville. Coach Tuberville went undefeated in 2004. We had season tickets. I went to a lot of games and supported that team. And, I loved that team. I was kind of a kid back then. But supported the team, supported the coach. Coach did a great job. Well, then Nick Saban came. And everything changed, right? The playing field changed for Auburn football. And so what did we have to do? We appreciated our coach. We certainly appreciated the team, but everybody kind of recognized, hey, we need a change in leadership. And we had a change in leadership. Well, because I thought, hey, we probably need a new coach, does that mean I now hated the team? No, not at all. It actually means the exact opposite. I wanted to figure out a way we could be successful moving forward. And that's kind of my analogy. And 2 years later, we won the national championship, by the way. But my analogy is just because you think maybe there needs to be a change in order for everybody to move forward does not mean that you hate everybody in that organization. That's just not true. And in fact, it doesn't even mean you hate the person that you think there needs to be a change. And I just, that's been weighing on me, obviously, because it's just untrue. I've supported the police as long as we've been sitting in these seats, and I still do. I just think for the city to move forward, everybody just needs a change. And I think my personal opinion is that would include for our department to move forward. And I know not everybody's going to agree with that, but since you brought that up, I wanted to share that. So next on the list, Justin Wow.
So I wanted to speak on this, really, since I'm not going to be here next week, but the compensation for the mayor and the city council. I'm pretty much against this pay raise, especially for the mayor's position. I know it's not going to take effect until obviously 2025, but given the current climate here in the city, lack of oversight in some departments, just overall decline in how things are operating, I think really instead of giving the mayor position a pay raise, we need to look at maybe scaling it back. And I don't care what Opelika, Coleman, Huntsville, Florence, I don't care what they do. That's them. We're different. We should be looking at how do we best serve our city and then incentivize a mayor that's coming in to better the city rather than just sit there and do nothing.
Thanks, Justin. I'll respond to that. Frankly, I just disagree with that line of thinking. We want this is my opinion, and it comes from a private sector mindset. I get that. But if you're hiring someone to run your organization, $100 million budget, 600 employees, you want the absolute best. I'm a strong proponent of city manager form of government. We should have had it many years ago when we voted on it. Sorry, Herman, for saying that. But the reason, if we were to hire a city manager, example, the city manager in Auburn, who's a professional manager that thinks the way a private sector person does and runs the city, makes $250,000 a year. So in order to increase candidate pool, I'm indifferent about the council pay, to be honest. I mean, you go from 16 to 21. I mean, maybe that helps expand the pool a little bit because it's kind of some additional income along with your regular job. That's probably good. It definitely puts us in line with other people. But from a mayor salary standpoint, we need to be as competitive as we can to draw people who are qualified to do that job. So I appreciate your opinion. I completely disagree with it. So we'll move on. Mr. Faruqi.
Well, I first off applaud your opinion on the city manager. If we had a professional in that position, I could justify the cost. In the present environment, we don't have that, and we are happenstance with a myriad of folks who are wanting to take that position. We could fall into the exact same shoes that we just are having with the current mayor unless we do something differently. Now, why not provide an hourly rate for you councilmen to conduct legislative research at a rate equal to what the mayor is getting paid at?
My opinion is, you actually emailed that to all of us, I believe, this week, and you actually said in your email, I can't remember if you can fix my quote, but something along the lines of, this could potentially lead to abuse, or I can't remember your exact term, but basically giving additional pay to whoever, I guess was your point, but you actually mentioned that in your email. And I think that is a danger to what you're proposing.
Let me clarify that.
You mentioned it in your email.
Let me clarify. You are the council president. If you have an issue with the police department, you have a myriad of liaisons here you can tag with a responsibility and say, by next council meeting, I want you, Carlton, to go and get in the knickers of that police chief and find out what's going on with all these police issues that are having with our public. You could do that. Now, why not?
I cannot order, I have no authority over them.
You can.
No, I can't.
Can I describe how you might be able to do that?
You can, but I do not have authority over anyone else on this dais.
If you put on the agenda for a council meeting that you're going to have a hearing or public officers will provide comment, and you tag Mr. McMasters with that responsibility as police liaison to give you some answers next week, because it's on the agenda and that's his responsibility, you can get those answers.
No, he can say I'm not doing it.
Well, let him try that the first time and see how long he stays in, how little you all stay in office.
That's fine.
Council, you could determine the work and scope timeline for responses within a timeline for council meetings. This would allow the new council liaison duties to actually have some teeth in support of asking questions. Police liaison could spend some time actually getting into the knickers. Now, this might also alleviate the $300,000 spent on GRT's research report that we have yet to have a hearing on. Is that?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, are you going to have a hearing on the Green Report?
There's no plan for that as of now.
Would anyone on council think that that's a good idea? Pike, no? You just shook your head no?
Correct. The report's out there. It's open for us to read it, research it, look at it. I just don't know what the real benefit of a hearing is. I don't.
When I offer that we have a lot of issues with trials upcoming for people who were illegally arrested.
Let's be clear. Let's back up 1 second. I'm the one guy who said that I didn't think that if the dates, names, locations were presented in the report, I didn't think that it should have been redacted. So if there were no redactions, the report is there. I just don't know that what benefit we get from a hearing when we can all read it. Of course, it's redacted and you can't read everything that's in there. Even if we went into a hearing, that's still going to be redacted. So I don't know what the real benefit of having a hearing is.
Is anyone here going to ask questions of the police chief in a forum where he'll provide answers on what is going on with all those reports of misconduct without having any type of determination on whether somebody did something right or wrong in those jobs? That's what a hearing can do. And we're scratching the surface with that report.
Are you talking about IA reports?
IA?
Yeah, we couldn't have that conversation either in an open forum because you're talking about personnel issues.
I don't need the names of the officers.
Yeah, and I do. I met with Chief Pinion last week, and I did ask him the questions that were proposed last week, including about the investigations into Third Friday and some other specific matters. And all I can tell you is he said those were thoroughly investigated. So.
And you take his word on that?
I have no other choice but to do that.
Well, you can ask Mr. McMasters as liaison to look into that, but that ought to be something he does himself. In addition to the liaison responsibility, incentives for council to actually attend the various boards, commissions, and responsibilities they have left to basically die on the vine. I don't know when the last time you may have gone to a personnel board.
I typically ask if there's something I need to be there for. I think the last time was when they were looking at market pay increases.
So the 2 firemen, that was not worthy of your attendance?
I paid attention to that and made sure I was aware, but I did not attend those hearings.
Police liaison attending various functions. Pepper has yet to be at a board meeting for the last year in Planning Commission. So basically, my issue is this process of funding for y'all has to be something that more teeth gets into what you're supposed to be doing. Whether you do it now, between now and the time you all leave, or the new embodying folks have the same responsibilities that you do, which means things are just going to pass on and we're not going to get anywhere with them. Now, until the mayor gets a policy for waste, fraud, and abuse, I do not believe he should receive a vehicle incentive of $475 or $22,800 for the term of office. And council, you can demand that the mayor and his staff stays throughout the duration of council meetings so he could be here for these discussions.
Please wrap up.
And that is, again, well within your responsibility, according to the Alabama League of Municipalities. And the mayor should receive a fine for failing to attend the duration of council meetings. I think that is something that needs to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Faruqi. Christy Love.
Good evening. I wish Councilman McMasters was here because this is actually for him. So I'm hoping he's watching and I'll talk to him. You have stated that you support Chief Pinion based on crime data. As a leader, I agree that data-informed decisions are essential, but we must analyze data correctly. A critical part of this process is distinguishing between correlation and causation. For example, crime tends to increase when ice cream consumption rises. If we took a cause and effect approach, we would wrongly conclude that eating ice cream causes crime. However, a correlational approach recognizes that other factors like the summer season impact both. In summer, people eat more ice cream. In summer, delinquent youth have more free time to be mischievous. The key is identifying the true underlying factors. Now, let's apply this to your claim. You assert that crime is down because Todd Pinion is chief. This is a cause and effect assumption. A correlational approach will consider other contributing factors. Even members of his own police force admit they don't follow his leadership, so it is illogical to credit him for the drop in crime. Additionally, relying on a single data point is insufficient. We must examine multiple sources and remember why we are in this position in the first place. The murder of an innocent man by rogue officers, the attempted cover-up of that murder, the leaking and editing of body cam footage. Then looking at Green's report's findings, the intentional misuse of IA Pro, the abuse of protesters, wrongful arrest, and destruction of body cam evidence. If I were to evaluate a teacher and praise her coaching skills while ignoring her inability to manage a classroom, evidenced by frequent fights, or dismiss her ineffective teaching proven by failing students, I would be failing as an educational leader. In the same way, we cannot overlook Pinion's failures simply because of a single crime statistic. We cannot be led by emotion or improper data analysis. That approach harms the very people we have been entrusted to serve. Leadership must be held to a higher standard. Todd Pinion must go. Justice for Steve, and happy Black History Month.
Byron Eccles.
Yeah. The first thing I want to talk about is just last week, my experience. I hadn't been here in a while. I came in, I signed in, I was the top person on the line. Went to the restroom, came back, there was like 8 people signed up. But there wasn't 8 people out there that had just signed up. So it looks like, for some reason, people are signing other people up.
Snooze fest.
Guys, come on, let him finish.
And what that does is it puts a citizen in the position where if the citizen took the time to come down here and get here on time to make sure they could speak, it puts them at having to wait on a certain person to speak and then a group of people after them they signed up. That's the appearance that it gives to me. It's almost like you could say maybe a control type thing. And then I looked at an article from 2021, police department article. Payne actually wrote it. It said that at that time, the situation with the police department was critical, and it was referencing staffing. You guys were in consideration for a raise for police officers. Based on how I was able to calculate it, that time, the police department was at 86% strength. Well, I looked at the article. The numbers are in there. Hopefully, I didn't make a mistake. I tried to, in all sincerity, make a good thing. But based on what I learned last week at the meeting, the police officers, they're at 70, I think 75-ish% strength. I've spent quite a bit of time doing management and hiring and trying to run an organization without people. And in the article that Maine wrote, they referenced social disorder causing police officers to be reluctant to be on the force. And we've had one of those happen here with the city of Perkins County. So my question, and I'm concluding, this is all I want to say. Hopefully I covered as much as I could, but my question is, what level of weight did you give staffing and turnover to the situation that, this report, I don't know what you call it, green report, is that what you guys call it? You call it, they didn't mention it at all. So at best, I think you as city councilmen and mayors and the public could think on any given day, the police department can crank out 75% of the work required. And you couple that with social unrest and having to deal with people yelling at you. We had a situation recently on the City Hall steps. You couple that with that and create turnover. So how do you, as a city council, take steps to give a better representation of the full facts than just the report? And I'll sit down and let you guys.
I'll answer your question. I think, as with most police departments, that's been a struggle. We talk to people all across the state. Staffing has been a challenge for some of the reasons you mentioned. I believe it was last January, gave a pay increase that put us at second, basically in our area behind Huntsville. In pay, that since has changed because of some structure. We're at a 2.5% step increase. Some of those are, I think, 4 or 5. Some of the city employees could answer that better than I could, but so we immediately kind of fell behind Madison again in that, from what I understand. I think in management, you mentioned, I think, something about management. There's two things that are always a struggle. I experienced this in my career, leading people who needed pay increases. And we couldn't always give, exactly what they wanted as far as pay. But I think the leadership you can provide, the work environment, having somebody who's dynamic, that's good to people want to go work for is important. As a leader, you've got to be that guy that people want to work for. And so that's important as well. I think we did see a big increase. I think at one point we were like 12 down at one point, which was the best we had seen, certainly in this administration.
Do you know what point that was?
It was probably May of 2023, or June. I have to go look. But we had done some things with employee where officer could, or any city employee actually could recommend somebody to be a police officer, and there was an incentive on both sides of that. That I think helped with the recruitment. So to answer your question, it's always been a challenge. It's always going to be a challenge, especially with police department. We need to make sure we're paying competitively and that we have an environment. I think from a vehicle standpoint, we've changed the policy on what range you could take your vehicle. That was under Chief Allen. I think Chief Pinion did some things to try to help with that environment. But it is a real challenge, and yes, we talk about that mainly during budget time about how we can help with that recruitment attention. So,
but to couple my 2 points together, one is...
And just wrap up.
Yeah, I didn't hear the buzzer. It's okay. Yeah, but to couple those two...
thought you were done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
I was until you answered that. But if you put those two together, which what's happening at city council meetings as far as being a representation of the city attitude, and potentially it's all a lot of negative toward police, and accountability. I talked about this, not accountability, but retainability of employees, it gets tough. I mean, I've sent men into combat and had them, I've sat there and watched a man dying because of some action that I took. And I can tell you, I don't know that many people have the experience to realize what these guys go through on a day-to-day basis.
I understand. Thank you for that. All right, Tommy Cook.
How's it going, guys? Good leaders have many qualities, including self-awareness, empathy, integrity, and communication skills. They also tend to be ethical, strategic, and action-oriented. To answer the guy's question that was before me, he asked, his problem was, or his situation was that while we don't have officers, right? And you took the words out of my mouth. No one wants to work for someone that don't show or exemplify good leadership capabilities. All right, it was just a couple of years ago where our previous chief, he averaged around 125 to 130
I'm gonna
officers.
have to stop you, and I told somebody that said that this week, that is just untrue. So
Okay.
I will get those numbers for you guys.
Please get
That's
those
one
numbers
thing
for me.
I didn't get, but that is not
All right.
true. So I just.
Please get those numbers. Please get those numbers. Because majority of the information that I wanted to discuss was with McMasters. Because, a lot of people talk about the crime rates. You know what I'm saying? This chief had better crime than the other chief. But the other chief did not have any issues or any police killings on his watch. His training was more than the other chief, right? So as a leader, sometimes when a leader, some leaders require more than other leaders, right? And we're seeing and experiencing, because as you say, the numbers was down with Allen, right? But the numbers are down with him as well. But what are the things that has happened under the watch of the present chief? It's a lot of rogue officers. The officers themselves said that they feel as if, they're intimidated to speak up. That's from the top. Those are effects from what's happening from the top. Some of these guys don't want to work for this chief. Some of these guys are taking actions in their own hands. So that's the whole thing. When we start talking about why, the police or some of these guys are sad or don't want to work, hey, it's not our fault. Somebody out of their camp took upon themselves to do some things or to operate outside of policy. And if someone's skin is that thin that they don't want, someone to tell them or speak up for wrong, that's idiotic. You're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong job. So just like the other two councilmen, if they cannot stand and want to hear what the public has to say, because it's not always good. If you can't stand and hear what someone has to say about you or to you, and maybe it might rustle your feathers or whatever, but being a man and standing for integrity and all of those things is, that's what we need. And one thing I want to address with McMasters. McMasters need to recuse himself from the voting, from everything. This guy, he does business directly with the police department, right? He formulates graphics and all of that, right? He needs to recuse himself. He needs to recuse himself from his spot. That's unethical. How is it that he can speak for his people or for his constituents, and he has a direct relationship with the people, with the very people that we're trying to address. He has a yes, he has a conflict of interest. It's a direct conflict of interest with him. He needs to recuse himself from anything that's dealing with the police department. He needs to, any voting, anything that's dealing with them, he needs to recuse himself.
Hello. Were you able to get any answers from Todd regarding the annual report?
Yes, the answer I got, I don't know the details of that specific report you had asked about other than what you told us. The last one that that we know of was in 2020 and it wasn't published for whatever reason. I don't know why there hadn't been one since then.
Okay, because I feel like in that report it gave accurate numbers, and so when we don't have that type of information, we have to find the source, which would be the former chief of police or the current one, and I feel as if it would be better if we had factual information that we can reference that's from a neutral source. But I wanted
I'll
to
check and see why there hadn't been one, but the
Okay.
last one that was done was 2020.
Mhm.
Wasn't published or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll ask Chief Allen the same. No, Chief Allen too, because he was still chief after that. So or he was in 2020.
The gentleman is outside, but I'm glad that he talked about the incident on City Hall because I quickly wanted to reference two things. Under Alabama law, obstructing governmental operations is defined as intentionally hindering the administration of law or other governmental functions through intimidation, physical force, interference, and any other unlawful act. If a bystander at a taxpayer-funded memorial is threatened with arrest for obstruction, the justification for such an action would depend on the bystander's behavior. For instance, if the individual is engaging in intimidation,
Just a minute. Yes, sir.
We have an issue back here with an individual trying to cause a disturbance.
Oh, absolutely not. Is this?
Would you like to actually move or move out of the doorway?
Mr. Faruqi, if you could just take a seat, that would be helpful.
I prefer not to take a seat.
Okay, well, we'll have to adjourn, or not adjourn, but go to recess if you can't just move out of the doorway, please.
So is that the issue, that I'm in the doorway?
I believe so, yes.
Intentionally trying to intimidate standing.
Mr. Faruqi, if you can't sit down.
I prefer not to, but I'll stand with the gesture over here, out of the doorway.
Officer, is that?
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, thank you. We're good? Okay. So I wanted to start over. If a bystander at a taxpayer-funded memorial is threatened with arrest for obstruction, the justification for such an action would depend on the bystander's behavior. For instance, if the individual is engaging in intimidation using physical force or unlawfully interfering with governmental functions, an officer might have grounds to consider it obstruction. However, if the bystander is merely present and not engaging in any obstructive behavior, threatening arrest may not be appropriate. In the report, it states, during the over 300 hours of body-worn camera review, the use of obstructing governmental operations to make an arrest or the threat of OGO arrest was seen multiple times. The use of OGO for noncompliance by citizens and non-physical interaction as a general charge to start the initial interaction may lead to verbally spoken charge to encourage a citizen to comply. Now, when we put up Steve's memorial in honor of him, they put up the memorial, they walked away. This officer that's in the back of the room who just spoke regarding Mr. Faruqi came out and gave a false charge because no one was obstructing governmental operations. I don't know if it's just repetitive for them to use that, but that was not what happened at all. Because as you know, for a whole year we had it up and no one ever obstructed anything. And so that leads me to why Todd needs to be removed, because he has bad judgment. For example, you had Renshaw in the room with us, and we later found out that he was targeting and falsely arresting protesters. You have this gentleman in the back who falsely gave a charge to taxpayer peaceful Steve Perkins supporters. And then you also have him in a paper encouraging the District 4 councilman with him implying threats and also stating, Jacob, that you don't know Robert's Rule of Order when he doesn't know his own policies and procedures. And so I just feel like he has very bad judgment, and this is another reason, as of today, why he needs to be removed. Thank you.
I will say during clerk's rules of order, and we will continue to do that as we have for 4.5 years. So, next is Sharonda Ackland.
Okay, so I think what just happened at the back is a prime example of how they're able to make false statements and get away with it because they're police officers. If there was a disturbance, then everyone in this room would have turned their attention to the back. He was uncomfortable, and that's what he should have said instead of saying that there was someone back there creating a disturbance, because that's not what happened. And the play on words just like that is misleading.
We can't stand in the doorway.
But it wasn't, but his word choice was misleading. Was it a disturbance? Or was he uncomfortable?
I think that we can't have people standing in the doorway.
But was it a disturbance? And that's what he falsely claimed, right? So again, it's like we give them so many passes to just say whatever they want to say and run with it. How's that okay? Billy, can you speak on how that was a disturbance? Was it a disturbance? Or a nuisance?
It might have been a nuisance.
But that's not a disturbance, right?
I'm not scared, Ms.
But
never been scared. I just no. But the thing is that I probably poor choice of words.
Don't we run into that a lot, though, with the police officers and the police chief?
But to be quite frank, Ms. Faruqi should not have been standing in the door. Probably a poor choice of words. Poor selection of words.
Typical with them, right? Okay.
There's been instances where we've had people moving into behind the computers and over where the media is, and that's just got to stop. So.
Okay. As far as access into the building, who does not have to go through metal detectors?
Any employee.
So city employees are able to come through without going through?
I think some media has a badge and other people do.
Okay, so someone who is easily irritable can come off as aggressive, correct? So how do we feel about firearms being brought in by city employees?
If there's anyone, I don't care if it's you guys or anyone else that's not legally allowed to have one, including council members of the mayor, they're breaking the law, and Herman, there would be potential arrest if that were to happen. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
That won't happen.
Okay, gotcha. Is there anything in place for, like, as you as councilman, if you are arrested for anything, what does that do to your position?
Depends on severity of the charge. Yeah. So anything if you're getting toward removal from office, is that kind of where?
I mean, just curious. I mean, anything. You get a DUI. I mean, you get a.
You would be under the law just like anybody else. So any penalty, if you're found guilty of that charge, and then from removal from office, would go through circuit court.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Mike Stovall.
Okay, I want to piggyback on that real quick. So how will you know that if they're not going through the metal detectors, how will you know that if they have a gun or not?
That's a good question I've thought about as Sharonda was asking the question, and we'll need to address that. I don't know.
Michael, when we did these metal detectors, I had concerns because the term postal comes from post office workers going in and shooting up things. Hopefully it'll never happen here, but for an employee to come in here and to have a weapon and something happen, it's possible. So from my position, everyone who comes into the building should go through the metal detector. I mean, that's just, and I'm guilty of myself. I have a pass and I come through the side door. I'm not carrying anything, but the thing is that anybody can carry a weapon at any time. It could be an employee. It could be a relative of an employee or a friend who an employee brings in. So if we were actually going to be safe, everyone who comes through the door should go through the metal detectors to make sure that, everyone's without a weapon. I said that back when we started this thing with the metal detectors, and I still feel the same way.
I don't know, anybody here work for the county or ever worked at the courthouse? I don't know, do you know if their employees go through it?
I see attorneys come straight past.
The county, their employees they have a badge and they do not go forth to the detective.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I think that's something that we need to look into, especially in the times that we're in now. I think we do need to look into that. And I want to add on to something that was in the paper as well. I know that you have councilmen Hunter trying to say that it's chaotic in here, and I feel like that people are trying to paint a narrative that it's chaotic in here, just like they painted the narrative that we hate the police. Don't paint those false narratives in here. No one is outrageous. Yes, sometimes our voices go into excitement or whatever, or we're emotional on some things, but just to say it's chaotic in here and that Jacob has no control over the meetings, that's totally wrong. I mean, what we're doing is we're dialoguing to try to make this city a better city. And just because I may not agree with Todd's opinion does not mean that I hate the police department. So what I'm seeing that's trying to creep up is the citizens against the police department. So that's all the reasons why Chief Todd Pinion needs to leave, because somebody has to bring unity into this city and somebody has to bring this thing back together. And this is not a fight against Chief Todd Pinion and Chief Nate Allen. Far as I'm concerned, they both would be in the past. It's time for something new for the city of Decatur. So I'm not gonna ride on that or whatever. And for us with Carlton, I think that if he's getting paid from his personal business through the city, through the police department, and he's making decals and all this, I think he needs to recuse himself from the vote. I don't think he should be able to just state different things about the police department because he's going to be biased. There's no other way that he can do it. And I got one question for you all from a person. How many hours does the police department work, like a day, a police officer?
On shift, 12.
Okay, so they work 12. So this citizen wants to know, would it be better maybe, and she's concerned about them, that maybe 8 hours, maybe 12 is just too much. Maybe that's the reason why they're acting the way they're acting sometimes.
I'm not sure. I'd have to ask somebody that's an expert in police policy. That would not be me, but we can ask that question.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. Alvin.
Gentlemen, everyone. So I know last week I spoke about complaints and turning those in, or how that was how that's handled. Was anybody able to figure out how that's supposed to go?
I think I asked all the questions you asked me to ask, except that one, the chief.
Because I had, after, I guess, people had watched, I had several people contact me this past week and ask me how, because they've had issues turning them in as well.
Yeah, I met with him for a long time, and I asked every question. I forgot to write that one down last week, so I'll do that this week.
I had a conversation, and I gave you my position on that. I think that regardless of how you do a complaint, it should be the simplest of processes, because we need to know what those complaints are. We need to know that all complaints are documented. So it should not be a convoluted situation. It should not be a difficult situation. It should be a situation where basically any officer could take a form from you, essentially, in the way I look at it, and turn it into the appropriate people. So I think that we should make it as simple as we possibly can to make sure that, to me, that's the real way that we measure if we're doing things the right way. And I've said before, Alvin, that I think that the vast majority of our police officers are good police officers. That's just my opinion. But I do think that there are some that probably don't need to be with our department. But I think that with a complaint process, we can see that. We can get a picture of who's doing what. And if there are complaints out there, then we need to know that so that corrective action can be taken.
Absolutely. So on Saturday night, I got a message and it was about a car accident that happened on Danville Road, and one of the passengers in one of those cars was actually my nephew. So, and Mr. Kennedy's nephew as well. It's a great nephew. We've spoken about public safety issues, right? And so a spokesperson for the Decatur Police Department says an officer was involved in a 3-vehicle wreck Saturday afternoon. According to the spokesperson, the wreck involved an officer and 2 vehicles, and no injuries were reported. There was a 74-year-old woman with a broken bone in her back. There was a 74-year-old woman with a broken bone in her back. There was also a 44-year-old man with injuries, and also my 14-year-old nephew. The officer, and this information was confirmed today, the officer was traveling at a high speed. He was on his phone, and he ran into the back of the 74-year-old woman, causing her to then T-bone them. I was told just last week, because I was trying to figure out how much training these officers actually go through, and I think they're required only 13 hours by the state of training. I mean, for all of the things that they deal with, 13 hours. I think that it is important that maybe, that whoever's chief require them to do more trainings and have, more hours of training, because you're out here serving the public and literally putting lives at risk and people in danger. I don't know if this is just the exposing season or what, but it seems that 2025 is coming here with a vengeance on this police department. And what happened on Saturday is yet again, a highlight of another public safety issue that we have. And again, our lives are at stake under the watch of Todd Pinion. That's it. That's all I got.
Justin Shepard. Anything else from council? No. All right, we'll stand adjourned.
I appreciate it.